One of you has to read it?
Yes, I will read, Rangada.
Okay, go ahead.
The first emergence from the inconscient is matter, and in matter, it would seem that falsehood and evil cannot exist because both are created by a divided and ignorant surface consciousness and its reactions. There is no such active surface organization of consciousness, no such reactions in material forces or objects. Whatever indwelling secret consciousness there may be in them, seems to be one, undifferentiated, mute, inertly inherent and intrinsic in the energy that constitutes the object. It effectualizes and maintains the form by the silent occult idea in it, but is otherwise self-wrapped in the form of energy it has created, uncommunicating and inexpressive. Even if it differentiates itself according to the form of matter in a corresponding form of self-being, rupam pratirupo bhuva. There is
Yeah.
no psychological organization, no system of conscious action or reactions. It is only by contact with conscious beings that material objects exercise powers or influences which can be called good or evil. But that good or evil is determined by the contacted being's sense of help or harm, of benefit or injury from them. These values do not belong to the material object, but to some force that uses it, or they are created by the consciousness that contacts it. Fire warms a man or burns him, but that is as involuntarily he meets it or voluntarily uses it. A medicinal herb cures or a poison kills, but the value of good or evil is brought into action by the user. It is to be observed, too, that a poison can cure as well as kill, a medicine kill or harm as well as cure or benefit. The world of pure matter is neutral, irresponsible. These values insisted on by the human being do not exist in material nature. As the superior nature transcends the duality of good and evil, so this inferior nature falls below it. The question may begin to assume a different aspect if we go behind physical knowledge and accept the conclusions of an occult inquiry. For here, we are told that there are conscious influences that attach themselves to objects, and these can be good or evil. But it might still be held that this does not affect the neutrality of the object, which does not act by an individualized consciousness, but only as it is utilized for good or for evil, or for both together. The duality of good and evil is not native to the material principle. It is absent from the world of matter.
This is a very interesting paragraph, and we have to discuss in great detail, okay? And it's quite complicated, okay? So we have to see what he's saying. We are, if you remember, we are looking at the chapter where the evil, okay, falsehood, evil, and suffering, from where are they coming? Are they, so the question is this, from where are they coming? Because on the one hand, Satchidananda is the supreme good. So, is these things inherent in them, or are they coming as a result of something? Okay, this is what he's saying. Because this is the biggest problem in all philosophy and all morality. How can evil, suffering, falsehood, how can these come into the world which the divine has made? It's impossible. So it's a huge problem. Okay. So mostly the problem is solved by saying that the good is created by the divine and the bad is created by the devil. So that's a dualistic system, and many religions subscribe to that. But the Vedanta does not. The Vedanta says that there's only one ultimate reality, and that is you call divine or you call whatever you want, but it is only good that exists. The rest is all results. So now the question I'll put it in a very simple way. What we are examining here, take the seed. Okay, the seed has the potentiality of the tree. Okay, in the tree, okay, in the seed, everything that is there in the seed comes out. So that, in other words, the tree is inherent in the seed. Now, exactly in the same way, the question is whether in Satchidananda, in the Supreme, okay, the seed of evil, suffering, and all these things are there or not. That's the question. Okay, you have understood the thing, no? It's like in the seed, flowers, fruits, bark, okay, roots, all these are there. Okay, so in the world, when the divine is creating the world, somehow he has managed to create, or so it seems, he has created evil, suffering, and falsehood. Of course, others also exist. Okay, there is truth, there is also ananda, and there is also good and not evil. All these things exist. But how can these opposite things come? That's the whole question. That's what he's examining. Then he says that when you go to the spiritual, I'm resuming, actually, I'm making a resume, but it's because it's very complicated subject. So I'm repeating mostly. Okay. So now the question is, Sri Aurobindo says that when you go into the spiritual plane of consciousness, you see that your idea of evil, suffering, and good disappears. How is that? That also we should explain. When the divine is creating, he is creating neutrally. He is not creating good or bad, neither creating good nor bad. Okay. And the best example, two examples I'll give you, and that will make you understand what is meant by neutrality. Divine is creating, and the principle of one becoming the many, you have to apply. Okay. When you apply the principle of one becoming the many, the divine, and also add to that the capacity of the divine to create infinitely. This you have to accept. Okay. Because you may say, no, the divine doesn't create infinitely. He creates only good. No. So he creates infinitely. So when he is creating infinitely, we'll take two examples. We'll take the example of wind and we'll take the example of light. Okay. He is creating light. Now he has created light, but he's creating light of all sorts of intensities. Nah? Why should he create only one? Because he can create infinite type of lights. He can create light of 1,000 watts, 2,000 watts, 10,000 watts, but also 50 watts and 0 watts. In other words, he can create bright light. He can also create very dim light. But the dimness, because these are dualities in the physical world. So if you take the two extremes, the brightest light and the darkness, now light is very good for us. We can see, we can understand. But darkness we don't like. Okay. So we are attributing good and evil to darkness and light. For the divine, there is no good and evil. Okay. There is no good and bad. He is just creating infinitely all sorts of things. So we are interpreting. So it's a result. The divine is not creating evil. Okay. So this is one thing. The other example is the wind. Okay. Take the wind. The divine is creating wind. Good morning, Archanadi. We are discussing a very, very interesting problem, and the recording is there. You can check the recording afterwards. So,
Okay, thank you, Rangadhar. Good morning. Good morning.
it's a very interesting subject, and that's exactly what we are doing now in the para. We'll be redoing the para, but just now we have just read it. Sunki has read it. Now, take wind. The divine is creating wind. Okay. When he is creating wind, he is again creating infinitely. He is creating the principle of the one becoming the many comes in, and he is creating infinitely. When he is creating infinitely, he can create winds of 100 miles per hour, 200 miles per hour, 500 miles per hour, 1,000 miles per hour. He can create. But he can also create 50 miles per hour, okay, soft wind, 25 miles per hour, even 1 mile per hour. So what is 1 mile per hour soft wind? We say, this is good. Okay. then he is creating also 1,000 miles per hour wind, and that you say, my God, it is destroying, it is hopeless, it is bad. Okay. The same thing applies to temperature also. So all the things. Now apply this principle to truth. Okay. Truth also, the highest truth and the lowest truth. The lowest truth you are calling it falsehood. The highest truth you are calling it truth. Goodness. Okay. Ananda also you can say the same thing. Divine is not creating good and bad, or he is not he is only creating dualities. So the question is, the divine is not creating, but your reaction to them is the problem. This is what he is discussing here, but it goes into great detail. Now let us see what is it. Keep this in mind, this argument. Okay. So then I now go into each sentence. Earlier, he has told us also, Archana was not there, so I'm just repeating that. The question that he is examining in this, the origin of falsehood and evil, is this. We take the example of the tree. The tree is creating, the seed is creating the tree with all its multiple things, leaves, flowers, bark, fruits, roots, okay? All these things it is creating, branches, twigs. Now, the tree is contained in essence in the seed. Now the world is coming from Satchidananda. So in the same way, is when that is being created, are evil, suffering and falsehood also inherent in the Satchidananda? Is the question he is examining. Then he has told us earlier that when you go into the spiritual planes of consciousness, you see that there is no suffering, no evil, nothing. Okay? And that's exactly the Buddhistic solution. Go from your identification to body, mind, life, go to the self, go to the Brahmic consciousness, come out of your body, mind, life, disappear. Disappearance of suffering is very, very clear. That was Buddha's message. Okay? So get out, get to nirvana, you will see that there is no suffering. And Sri Aurobindo says exactly in the same way, why only suffering? Evil is not there, falsehood is not there. This is a spiritual experience. Now he will examine this question. Okay. He has told us that there is the divine is only good, only truth, only Ananda. Okay. It's when it comes down, these things are created. And we saw in the previous paragraph that he says that in the involutionary downward movement, there is diminution, but there is no falsehood. There is no distortion. There is no wrong elements. It's all diminution. The light goes down and becomes the black darkness of the inconscience. Now, in the upward movement, when you are evolving from the inconscient and going up, slowly, slowly the consciousness is rising. But when you are starting from the downward movement from Satchidananda, from light and knowledge and truth, there cannot be any mixture in it. It can be diminution, but not distortion. Okay, the distortion is there in the upward movement. So, and again, the argument is when you are starting from ignorance and darkness, you don't know where you are going. So naturally, you can go into the wrong channel. Okay, exactly in the same way. So when you go into the wrong channel, you may come across a difficulty. That is a suffering. You may make a wrong choice of routes. There are 2, 3 routes, and you take the wrong one, and you realize it's an error. It's a falsehood. This is not the right one. So all the error, falsehood, and evil, suffering, they are results in the involutionary movement. Okay? But even in the involutionary movement, after a certain time, they don't apply. Okay? When you go into the higher spiritual planes of consciousness, these negatives don't apply. This is what he has said until now. Now, today he is introducing some very interesting another point. Okay? And that's what we are going to discuss today. I'm reading each sentence. The first emergence from the inconscient is matter. Okay? Even matter is not the last. Inconscient is the last. So, the first emergence from the inconscient, he's talking of the evolution. The first emergence from the inconscient is matter. And in matter, it would seem that falsehood and evil cannot exist because both are created by a divided and ignorant surface consciousness and its reactions. There is no pain and suffering in matter. Okay, there is no evil in matter. It is just matter, neutral. There is no such active surface organization of consciousness. No such reactions in material forces or objects. Whatever indwelling secret consciousness there may be in them, seems to be one, undifferentiated, mute, inertly inherent and intrinsic in the energy that constitutes the object. It effectualizes and maintains the form by the silent, occult idea in it, but is otherwise self-wrapped in the form of energy it has created, uncommunicating and inexpressive. It's a huge sentence, and we'll tell you the. So, remember that the supreme consciousness and the inconscience are symmetrical and very, very similar, except that they are mirror images of one another. Okay? In a mirror image, right becomes left and left becomes right. So exactly in the same way, the similarities, I'll list them out for you. The first similarity is the superconscient is infinite. The one below, the inconscient, is also infinite. Number one. Okay. The second similarity, that is absolute. And this inconscient also is absolute. The superconscient is one. Okay. The inconscient is one. Now we are applying the principle of that one to matter. Then we'll see. If there is one, okay, how can there be suffering and ananda? Because suffering and ananda are dualities. There has to be two. This is the argument, very interesting argument. See, all suffering is the absence of ananda. No? So there has to be two. You will not understand suffering if you are constantly in suffering. You will not know. But when you are in ananda and then it goes away, then you realize that, oh, just like light and darkness. If you are living in darkness, you will never know that there is darkness or there is light. So exactly in the same way, in suffering, evil and falsehood, these are things where dualities come into the picture. And in matter, there is no duality, there is only oneness. So in matter, there can be no evil, no suffering, and no falsehood. It's just oneness. It's a neutral thing. Okay, so this is what he's saying. Now, I think it's clear, no? They wanted to detail to see that. Look at the language. Okay. The first emergence from the inconscient is matter, clear. And in matter, it would seem that falsehood and evil cannot exist. Why? He is giving the argument. Because both are created by a divided and ignorant surface consciousness and its reactions. There has to be division. There has to be two. Falsehood and truth. Evil and good. Okay? Suffering and ananda. So even matter is one, then there cannot be any suffering and all these things cannot exist. That's the argument. There is no such active surface organization of consciousness, no such reactions in material forces or objects. Okay. There's no reaction at all, okay, inside them. Whatever indwelling secret consciousness there may be in them seems to be one, undifferentiated, mute, inertly inherent and intrinsic in the energy that constitutes the object. Even science is telling you that. Science is telling you that matter is energy and energy is just one everywhere. Okay? There's no difference. There are different types of energies, but that is in the creation. The inconscient, when it starts creating, then different types of energies come up. Just like the from the higher level also, the one becoming the many, different things come up. Okay, exactly in the same way, like one cell divides itself. It is one, but it divides itself and starts producing different types of matter. It produces muscle tissue, it produces skin tissue, bone tissue, okay, light sensitive uh, retina tissue. So all these things it produces exactly in the same way. The production of the many from the inconscient, one becoming the many, again the same principle, then these things come in. But in matter itself, it is undifferentiated one, just energy. Okay? Inertly inherent and intrinsic in the energy that constitutes the object, it effectualizes and maintains the form by the silent occult idea in it. Now, what is the silent occult idea? The silent occult idea is at the supramental level, where everything is being created. There is a blueprint. You can call it the archetype. In English, we have the word archetype. Everything that is there in the physical world, there is an archetype. The archetype of the lotus is in heaven. The archetype of truth is in heaven. Everything is there. The form is there, but the essence, the blueprint is there in the superconscious. That's a silent occult idea. Idea with an I cap, remember. It's a plan that this is what I'm going to create. That's it. You can call it the blueprint. Okay, so in it. But is otherwise self-wrapped in the form of energy it has created, uncommunicating and inexpressive. The expression starts in the evolution, but in matter, the evolution has not started yet. Okay? Even if it differentiates, now when it starts differentiating the different energies, it produces plants, animals, so many different types of things. Okay? Even matter, it produces 100 types of matter: gold, silver, okay, platinum, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. It is all this. Even if it differentiates itself according to the form of matter in a corresponding form of self-being, rupam rupam pratirupo babhu. There is a footnote. Let's read the footnote. So the footnote is a reference to Katha Upanishad. Okay. By the way, it is Katha Upanishad. Huh? Katha is the name of a rishi. It's not Katha Upanishad. Rupam rupam pratirupo babhu means it's creating infinitely. Goes on creating rupas, forms. Okay. There's no end to it. There is no psychological organization, no system of conscious action or reactions. Stones. Okay. There is absolutely no psychological organization, no system of conscious actions or reactions. Okay. Even if the consciousness is there, there is no reaction. Now, it is only by contact with conscious beings that material objects exercise powers or influences which can be called good or evil. Now, he is going to explain this with examples. Okay, so, but I just read out the note that I have made. This is an interesting fact. Material objects are neutral. Their traits of good and bad, helpful or harmful, show up only after contact with conscious beings, animals and men. Okay, so that's what it makes it. Animals and men. So before that, there is nothing. Okay, now he'll explain. But that good and evil is determined by the contacted being's sense of help or harm. That's exactly what we discussed in the beginning of the today's class. Okay, that divine is creating light. You are calling light darkness. You are calling bad, and light you are calling good. Okay, very strong wind you are calling bad, and very light, pleasant wind you are calling good. The good and the bad is not created by the wind. It is created by your reaction to it. That's exactly what Shabda vertical. Okay? When it comes in contact with a being's sense of help or harm. And that also is only help or harm, or benefit or injury from them. Then the idea of suffering, falsehood, all this is coming. These values do not belong to the material object, but to some force that uses it, or they are created by the consciousness that contacts it. My consciousness, when I'm contacting this wind, then I have a reaction of good and evil. Okay? When my consciousness is contacting the light, then I have the idea of good light and bad light. Okay? He's giving a very interesting example. Fire warms a man or burns him. Okay? It depends on how you approach it. The fire has got the capacity of both. Exactly what we discussed. Wind and light. Exactly the same thing with fire. Fire is fire. Okay? It warms a man if you use it in the right way, or it burns him if you use it in the wrong way. Okay? So all these things are there in the universe. It depends on your use and your interpretation. But that is an involuntary, but that is as involuntarily he meets it or voluntarily uses it. Depends on you entirely. Depends on the consciousness of the contactor. Now, a medicinal herb cures or a poison kills. But the value of good or evil is brought into action by the user, the one who is using these things. It is to be observed, too, that a poison can cure as well as kill. Okay? A medicine kill or harm as well as cure or benefit. Okay? So this is, we know that. When you take too much, okay, if you take one sleeping pill, it may benefit you. Of course, doctors will say don't take sleeping pills. But I'm just giving a very neutral example. But if you take 200 sleeping pills, finish, you're gone. Okay, it depends on how you use it. The world of pure matter is neutral, irresponsible. Okay, the word irresponsible is very interesting. He is not using it in a negative way. He is using it as there is no guilt or quality that you can attribute to matter. Matter is not guilty. Okay? A big stone can hurt you, but it is not responsible for you. In that sense, it is irresponsible. It is not at all creating these things. It is irresponsible. Non-responsibility. Okay? These values insisted on by the human being do not exist in material nature. Now, this sentence is exactly very clear when we get the idea of the light and the wind. In the light, the idea of helpfulness and not helpfulness is not there so much, but in the wind, it becomes very clear. Okay. These values, good and bad, okay, pleasant and unpleasant. These values insisted on by the human being do not exist in material nature. As a superior nature transcends the duality of good and evil, so this inferior nature falls below it. Okay? In other words, there is no good and bad in the highest, there is no good and bad in the lowest. The thing comes up in the middle somewhere. In the evolutionary ascent, it comes in. The question may begin to assume a different aspect. Now, they're saying, I have said what I've said, but now let's go a little deeper and we'll see that there's another problem. That's what he's saying. The question may begin to assume a different aspect if we go behind physical knowledge and accept the conclusions of an occult inquiry. Okay. Now that's very interesting. The occult inquiry, what it is, what he is going to discuss. But here we are told that there are conscious influences that attach themselves to objects, and these can be good or evil. Okay, but it might still be held that this does not affect the neutrality of the object. It's a long sentence, so I'll go back to the. Or here we are told that there are conscious influences that attach themselves to objects. Now, the conscious influences are gods and asuras. Asuras exist. Even in the vital world, there are beings that help you, and there are also beings that can hurt you. Okay, they can actually put an influence on you. So all the argument that Srendra has given here, okay, now he's saying that there is an objection. And this objection is that there are forces in the physical world which attach themselves to objects. And then it can have a wrong effect. For instance, fire, okay, if the fire is very mild and warms you, it is good. But it's possible for uh, a wrong influence, conscious influence, to create fire which will hurt you. It's possible. Attach themselves in, and these can be good or evil. But now, counter argument. But it might still be held that this does not affect the neutrality of the object, which does not act by an individualized consciousness, but only as it is utilized for good or evil, or for both together. The use of these, the material objects, depends on the consciousness which is coming to it. That's what he's saying. The duality of good and evil is not native to the material principle. It is absent from the world of matter. So dualities don't exist in matter. Okay? So he has gone into great detail to explain this. In matter, there is oneness and there is no duality. Therefore, there cannot be all this good, bad, okay, hot, cold, all this cannot be there. Pleasant, unpleasant cannot be there in matter. It is how you use matter that produces these dualities. Okay, so quite complicated, but he has not yet finished the inquiry. Huh? So now we'll have to see more. He's going into great detail to see each thing. Now, how much time do we have? We've got 7 minutes. We can read the next one. The duality begins with conscious life and emerges fully. As soon as life comes in, first there is the inconscient, it produces matter. In matter, there is neutral. Now life comes in. When life comes out of matter, then the problem starts. Okay, so let's read the para. We may not be able to discuss it, but we can read the para. Sumki has already read. So, Kiran?
I can read, Ranga.
Yeah, okay. Achadi, you read. The
This
duality.
discussion is really very interesting. Thank God I didn't miss it.
Absolutely fascinating.
Duality of matter, so yes, fascinating actually. That's the word.
Yes.
Okay, okay, I'm reading.
Yes.
The duality begins with conscious life and emerges fully with the development of mind in life. The vital mind, the mind of desire and sensation, is the creator of the sense of evil and of the fact of evil. Moreover, in animal life, the fact of evil is there, the evil of suffering and the sense of suffering, the evil of violence and cruelty and strife and deception, but the sense of moral evil is absent. In animal life, there is no duality of sin or virtue. All action is neutral and permissible for the preservation of life and its maintenance, and for the satisfaction of the life instincts. The sensational values of good and evil are inherent in the form of pain and pleasure, vital satisfaction and vital frustration, but the mental idea, the moral response of the mind to these values are a creation of the human being. It does not follow, as might be hastily inferred, that they are unrealities, mental constructions only, and that the only true way to receive the activities of nature is either a neutral indifference or an equal acceptance, or intellectually an admission of all that she may do as a divine or a natural law in which everything is impartially admissible. That is indeed one side of the truth. There is an infrarational truth of life and matter which is impartial and neutral and admits all things as facts of nature and serviceable for the creation, preservation, or destruction of life. Three necessary movements of the universal energy, which are all connectedly indispensable and each in its own place of equal value. There is, too, a truth of the detached reason which can look on all that is thus admitted by nature as serviceable to her processes in life and matter, and observe everything impartial
Yeah.
acceptance. This is a philosophic and scientific reason that witnesses and seeks to understand, but considers it futile to judge the activities of the cosmic energy. There is a suprarational truth formulating itself in spiritual experience, which can observe the play of universal possibility, accept all impartially as the true and natural features and consequences of a world of ignorance and inconscience, or admit all with a calm and compassion as a part of the divine working. But while it awaits the awakening of a higher consciousness and knowledge, as the soul escaped from what presents itself as evil, is ready with help and intervention where that is truly helpful and possible. But nonetheless, there is also this other middle truth of consciousness which awakens us to the values of good and evil and the appreciation of their necessity and importance. This awakening, whatever may be the sanction or the validity of its particular judgments, is one of the indispensable steps in the process of evolutionary nature.
Again, a long paragraph, which we'll do tomorrow in detail, okay? Because now we have only 3 minutes, or even 2 minutes left only. So we can't do it today, but we'll do it tomorrow. Further discussion. Very interesting, okay? So, in other words, he is also giving you a hint that evil, suffering, and falsehood have their reason for existence. They are, if you seen in the right way, they will help you. Okay, that's what he's saying. Because if suffering is not there, you will have a static condition. You will not want to change. Okay, but when there's something prodding you, okay, then you want to change the conditions. That is why rajas comes in. Okay, otherwise in matter there is tamas. There is no idea of progress and no wanting to change. But when life comes in, it brings in suffering and pain. But there's also the goading. There's a pushes you to say no. I want to go beyond this. So that also has got a value. So all these things, tamas, rajas, and sattva, they all have values. They're not only negative. And when you go to the higher level of consciousness, you become neutral. Remember, you become neutral. You don't judge anything. You just see everything as they are. Blue is blue, red is red. I'm just seeing that they are. I don't call red bad and blue good. I'm just seeing everything, and each one has got their own function in life. So that's the paragraph that he is telling here. We'll have a look at that. Okay. So, have a Archana, you are in Bangalore still?
Yes, Rangada, I did a lot of work. I went home and then I went to Ujjain, and today I'm in Bangalore. In a day or two, maybe I'll return to Pondicherry.
Okay. So, can we say goodbye, au revoir, and have a nice day, everybody?
Thank you,
Yes.
Rangada.
Archana ji, Kiran,
Thank you, Rangada.
and
Rangada.
goodbye, everybody. Have a nice day.
Au revoir.